GM everyone, welcome back. We are live. It is Friday. It's an exciting Friday. Things are happening. Charts are sort of turning green. We're going to get into all of that today. Welcome back to the SolanaFloor Weekly Recap, where we chat through the top stories of the week, shaping the industry and, of course, the Solana ecosystem. I'm joined, as always, by our senior journalist, the man, the myth, who's also suffering through a heat wave, just like the rest of us here in Europe. Finn Miller, GM, sir.
GM Jack, how are we getting on? Not feeling too hot?
It's hot. It is sweaty. I can't lie to you. The one and only Mr. Thomas Bahamas also joins us from just across the pond. GM Thomas.
GM. Happy Friday, everybody. I'm glad to say GM this morning without the market nuking on me. So you guys are welcome. Good morning. Good morning.
You did catch a bit of flack yesterday in the team channel for saying GM just as markets were nuking. Happy to report today that is not the case. Apologies, Thomas, for being so aggressively just opposed to you waking up. But thank you for waking up today. Markets are green. So let's hope that stays for the rest of the day. Let's hope we have a green weekend. I'm not convinced yet that we are fully back. We're going to get into all of that. So here's the thing about this week, right? If you look only at the charts, today you'd make your mind up thinking, oh, it's going to be great. If you looked at the charts yesterday, you were probably thinking, oh dear, Bitcoin was at its lowest level since October 2024. We had some $1 billion of liquidations, I think, in a 24-hour period. The fear and greed index is back into extreme fear. It was definitely a grim few days, especially, I think, if you listened last Friday to the KOLs who were calling the bottom, then it would have been a very, very dark week for you. Now, lo and behold, Friday again, KOLs are calling the bottom again. We're going to get into it. But I think the whole story of this week is just how volatile it's really been. For a while, halfway through the week, everything was resting on the Micron earnings report. Happy to report that went well. Micron went live on chain as well. What else happened? Arcium shipped its token. Mixed reactions to that. Not too surprising. People are saying Web3 gaming is back and it's happening on Solana. Not quite convinced. We'll get into that in a second. $1 billion AI facility is picking Solana. That's quite interesting. Is Europe back? Maybe that's an interesting question as well. If our listeners have any strong opinions about Europe, do let us know. We spoke with Foundation's Seraphim yesterday, who thinks Europe is dead. It's hot, but it's not dead, is my take on it. But definitely a tale of two different markets. You've got price happening on the one end. It's been down only for, 8 months now or something? And then deep in the ecosystem, we have massive amounts of progress. So bit of a divergence there. Finn, Thomas, before we dive into this newsletter, let me get a bit of a vibe check from you two. How are we feeling after a swingy, volatile week where it really felt that Micron's earnings report was just complete break or make?
I feel like we're skating on thin ice, Jack. It's a moment with a huge amount of volatility. We've seen the Korean stock market index has triggered its circuit breakers twice in the past week. Prices are going down 10% today there, and then obviously that has a ripple effect because then there's a tech stock sell-off in the US markets, and then it kind of becomes a reflexive loop where Korean markets and US markets and the Hong Kong markets all bounce off each other. We're getting massive moves in semis, we're getting massive moves in memory and chip stocks and all kinds of things. And while that's going on, obviously crypto is affected. Bitcoin is hitting its lowest point since October 24, like you mentioned. So I think it might be a bottom, it might not be a bottom, but it's certainly volatile. It's very, very choppy out there. Thomas, what's your read?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolute chaos on the timeline, right? It's like I'm seeing 35K Bitcoin calls and I'm seeing $600 Solana calls. So it's like the classic battle of bears and bulls. Who is right? Probably neither of them, right? I think we probably end up not going as low as 35K, and we're probably not going as high as $600 right away, right? So I'm not convinced that we're at the stone cold bottom right here. But I mean, it's got to be close, right? Sentiment's pretty bad. It's very hard to be bullish on anything crypto while Saylor has just like this massive amount of Bitcoin that he's got to do something with, right? There is no easy road to him getting out of this mess that he got in. We called Stretch a Ponzi right when it came out on this show, and
I didn't. You did. You called it a Ponzi.
To be clear,
I was a bit more diplomatic about it. I said it might be. It smells a bit like a Ponzi. You guys had no chill. You called it a Ponzi instantly.
You hedged on it. I just went straight in for it, called it the Ponzi that it is, and it's kind of playing out like that. So I don't know how we get out of this very easily. But I mean, with that said, I mean, you look at things and it's like, all right, it does feel like a bit like a bottom, right? So
It
we're
does.
getting close.
It really feels like we're on the verge of a bottom. And just to sort of reiterate that point that you're making, the bears and the bulls arguing on a very chaotic timeline. Let's see how close to a bottom we might actually be. BTC touched 58K, horrific scenes. Happy to report that it has somewhat recovered this morning. Sol dipped to $64. Hype was about $60 as well this morning. Now, interestingly, Multicoin Capital turned around and said Hype is probably a $320 token in the not so distant future. Caution. We have had even people like Anthony Scaramucci in the past talking to us and saying, $2,500 Sol is not out the realms of possibility. Granted, this is in a sort of a 5 to 10 year time horizon, but do be cautious when you get these price targets. ETH is trading about $1,500. So we're a long way away from the all-time highs. In fact, this is an interesting stat here. In the last month alone, BTC is down about 22%. ETH is down about 26%. Luckily for us, Sol is down only 18%. So as all of this is happening, now prices are extremely volatile. This sort of the end of the week, let's say, I'm expecting more volatility over the weekend. But Ansem is now in no uncertain terms calling this a bottom. Full disclaimer, I am also somewhat of a buyer at these levels. I'm conservatively dollar cost averaging. I'm not taking any large trades or using much leverage at all. Make of that what you will. Now, it goes without saying also that both traditional markets and crypto markets are right now watching what the Fed chair, Kevin Warsh, is going to do. He is a little bit hawkish at the moment. We're going to see what happens with rates. But fellas, what do we think about the following statement? I'm really curious what your take on this is. Saw two spicy takes this morning. One was basically saying what happens with Michael Saylor's strategy, right? You guys called it a Ponzi, STRC, as well, is basically going to be the key leading indicator as far as crypto prices in the coming months. That was one of the hot takes. The other one, on the other side, is something that Seraphim said, actually, and it's being echoed on the timeline, is saying stocks essentially are going to have to continue puking a little bit. And that is going to be the key indicator that we need to watch before we see a bottom. So curious where on that spectrum you guys are.
I would agree with pretty much both of those takes, to be honest. I think, first of all, we are at a crossroads with the Saylor scenario. I think we can't move forward until this is either resolved or he completely blows up. Whether that means that Bitcoin goes down to 40K or whether we V-shape out of here. Look, everything hinges on what Saylor's doing at the moment. Nobody wants to enter the market knowing that Saylor might be on the cusp of having to unravel a $50 billion position. So, we are at a crossroads there, essentially. And also, stocks have been absolutely ripping for 6, 7, 8 months now. If there is a broader sell-off in the stock market, that's going to trickle down to crypto as well. Every time that the Mag 7 takes a big plunge, we also see Bitcoin go down, and that obviously drags alts with it. So there's a lot of reasons that crypto could go down at the moment, even though we've already had 9 months of red candles. So yeah, that's kind of my view there. I think Saylor needs to be resolved, whether that's for the best or for the worst. And, we do need probably a cool off in the stocks as well.
Yeah, I broadly agree with that as well, right? I think that investors hate uncertainty, and right now with Michael Saylor kind of like overhanging over the entire industry, people don't like that, right? It's not going to bring in outside capital at this moment. Does that mean that it's a good DCA time if you're going to buy a little bit for the long term? Probably. Is it still is there still the big chance that it's going to go down a lot? Yes, but also I saw a little bit of chat there. I think we got One Arm Bandit calling for 10K Solana. Okay.
We do.
Okay, shill your bags. Shill your bags if you're going to shill them. Why not?
I mean,
love to see it.
I think we'd love to see it. We love to see the message. Let's see if this actually plays out. Thank you, One Arm Bandit. Now, what's interesting? You mentioned uncertainty there. I totally agree with you. Markets undeniably hate uncertainty. What I find interesting, though, is a few months ago, we were talking about the biggest source of uncertainty for markets being the midterms, political uncertainty. The conflict happening between Russia and Ukraine, the conflict in the Middle East with Iran. People were saying these are the single biggest sources of uncertainty that it's causing markets to sort of not be so sure about where to deploy capital into. Fast forward to today, stocks are once again ripping. The sort of AI valuations are reaching blistering bubble levels. And meanwhile, crypto is still sort of lagging behind. So I find it interesting that you could argue that the number of factors for uncertainty has increased And somehow people are finding comfort in that and deploying more capital into AI names, AI stocks, but crypto is not quite there yet. In a way, this gives me confidence that when the uncertainty is resolved, the crypto will catch up to the fundamentals. I don't know. That's my crazy take.
Is that bullish that we no longer have to like wait on what the US government is going to do to help pump our bags? Like, I love that we're not having to like follow along like every single Senate hearing.
That's great in a way, but I mean, the obvious answer is we don't know, right? We don't know how crazy the midterms could actually be in terms of its impact on crypto. It's just that it's no longer the single biggest talking point that Trump's crypto corruption, quote unquote, is going to be the reason why the market sort of nukes. I don't know. I tell you what I do know, though. Finn has written a banger newsletter for us this week. So let me pull this up quickly. We've done a bit of a price check. We've done a bit of a vibe check. So let's pull up the newsletter. Finn, what have you got for us in the intro? What's your high-level take on this very swingy, volatile week?
The high-level take is that Bitcoin is at the gates of Goblin Town. There is a lot of reasons that it might go down a bit further on, but it's holding very, very tightly to the those gates at 59K. This is all mostly strung up, obviously, as we mentioned, on Saylor's financial alchemy scheme with Stretch and with MicroStrategy. So, look, it all hinges on what happens next. If Saylor can pull a rabbit out of the hat and find a way to make this continue to work, I think we'll be okay. At the same time, maybe we just need a full purge that wipes it out, and then we can kind of get on with our lives. But beyond that, Solana DeFi is kicking into a new gear of its own. Backpack and Sunrise are saving us from only trading, vaporware and magic internet money. They're bringing more upgrades on chain with the deepest liquidity we've seen. We're getting aftermarket price discovery on the biggest earnings event of the year. I feel like everyone was looking at the Micron earnings report to see if we'd have permission to continue to pump after that, and absolutely delivered. So that's very encouraging. And we're also getting a bit of Solana gaming action. Finally, Lily once said that crypto gaming is never coming back. The guys over at Kintara are trying to prove her wrong. So very, very exciting week. Looking forward to cracking into it. As we see here at the top as well, Arcium has called the bottom. So let's hope he's right.
I'm not convinced about the gaming thing. We are going to dive into it. Let's dive into story number 1, though. The first story here is, as you can see, the headline, "Is this the bottom? Bitcoin hits October 2024 lows." Finn has written, "It's rough out there." It is so rough out there. It's so rough out there that if you're staring at the charts, you're probably thinking, what am I even doing looking at these charts? I should probably go and touch grass. I recommend it. It's good. Now, savage times yesterday with BTC touching 58K. We saw a bit of a dead cat bounce, you could argue, around the Micron earnings. As Finn mentioned, it was huge amounts of uncertainty, bit of a make or break moment, as we just mentioned. Still, people are concerned about STRC. Is it a Ponzi? I don't know. Fear around what's going to happen to Michael Saylor. Finn, how bad is this really, though? This discussion about is it the bottom or not? To our audience members, to our listeners, first of all, let me know if you think this is the bottom. And Finn, for you, how bad is BTC touching 58K? Does it just open the gates for us to then crash below these levels to 55K? Or what's your take on what's going to happen in the coming weeks?
I think if you look at the charts, there's not a whole lot of support hanging out under some of these levels. I think that's why a lot of people are saying that, if we lose some of these levels, if we lose 58, 55, we are going to go crashing straight down to 50. I think, that's another classic crypto psyop. I think maybe we bounce around between 50 and 55. Everyone starts calling for 40, for 30. Everyone says it's the end. And at that point, no one's trading and leveraging anymore. Everybody's calmed down. Everybody's doing other things. And once all the eyes are off the market and no one's hyper leveraging themselves, into the permanent underclass, let's say, then Bitcoin can start moving. Then the rest of the ecosystem can start pulling itself together, and crypto can start reclaiming a lot of these levels. Whether that happens in 2 months, whether that happens in 6 months, I can't tell. I don't have my crystal ball with me today. But look, I'm expecting a bottom around kind of 50, 55. Don't let the doomers tell you we're going to 30K. I think we'll be all right.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
TB,
look, I think
when bottom.
Yeah, when bottom is right. And I mean, normally and during this part of the market, right, when there's like peak doomerism, there's no positive narrative out there. That's when I'll normally buy some Bitcoin. And right now, I can't quite get myself to do it. Right, I feel like the doomerism is too strong right now. Like it does seem like there is another little leg down. So I don't know. I'm struggling with it. What's that?
I said the doomers have got to you. They've convinced you to not buy. Surely that means it's a great time to buy.
Yeah, well, I mean, Bitcoin kind of lost its narrative. Like, I mean, they don't even have a real solution for quantum yet, right? So it's like it doesn't have that. Like, it doesn't have its like security budget for the future once they stop actually issuing coins. So like, it's got some real issues where they don't quite have it all figured out. And then on top of that, they've got billions of dollars held by Michael Saylor. So I don't know, what my solution is going to be, but like it just doesn't seem like the, digital gold that it's supposed to be.
Finn, over to you then. How bad is this overhang, this Sailor potential Ponzi overhang?
I think it's bad. I think, as I mentioned before, nobody wants to enter the market while sales sits on the cusp of a $50 billion unwind. I don't think that stretch necessarily goes to zero. I want to see a soft landing here. At the same time, I think that Sailor blowing up would actually solve a lot of problems for the industry. Maybe there's this shadow force that is trying to deliberately liquidate Sailor, but at the same time, we have seen this before. MicroStrategy has been down horrendously on its position before, and it rose out like a phoenix from the ashes, and came to become the massive success that it was last year, or at least in the year before. So yeah, everything hinges on Sailor at the moment. I can't say whether it's going to blow up, whether he's going to ride it out, but everyone's waiting for something to happen. And as we've seen in many respects, nothing ever actually happens. So maybe he actually rides this out. Maybe he finds a way. Maybe everyone can start calming down a bit on either 0 or 100 on Michael Saylor, and coins to start creeping up again once all the leverage is wiped out of the system. There was a screenshot up there where we had over $1 billion in liquidations. As long as this is still happening, we're not going to set a solid foundational liquidity layer or base for things to start moving in a sustainable way. So listen, guys, if you want the markets to calm down and you want Bitcoin to start moving up again, stop pushing that slider all the way up to 20x and just buy spot and chill. And
stop getting liquidated. Might be the best piece of advice SolanaFloor journalists have ever given. Stop getting liquidated. That's a good one. Okay. Final words here are Ansem's calling a bottom. Crypto bros are panicking. As you can see, we're back into extreme fear on this CoinMarketCap crypto fear and greed index. So it's messy out there. It's choppy out there. I have a feeling it's going to be even more volatile in the coming days. And we have to wait and see, unfortunately. Whether or not this is the bottom, I'm not so sure anyone has a reasonable answer yet. But definitely behaving like a potential local bottom. Now, story number 2. This is a very, very interesting one. And we've been talking about this whole narrative of stocks on Solana for quite some time now. But very quickly, before we dive into this, I want to talk about something that I found this morning. It's a Galaxy report on Solana and Solana's performance in Q1. Now, they basically came out with this long, very well-articulated thesis about the 5 biggest problems that Solana is dealing with. And I'm happy to report that every single one of those problems is either fully addressed or is being addressed. Now, I'm going to get into each of these in just a moment. But Finn, do you want to very quickly talk us through Backpack, Sunrise, listing MU, so Micron on Solana ahead of the Micron earnings report? What is the biggest takeaway from this, and how does it contribute to this overall narrative of stocks on Solana?
Look, this story for me is beautiful because it cuts completely against everything that's happening in terms of prices. Obviously, people love to talk about prices. People love to talk about markets. Sol can move up, down, whatever. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the network remains the best place to trade on-chain in the entire world. More assets are coming on-chain faster than ever before, with deeper liquidity than ever before, and execution is rivaling what we're seeing on centralized exchanges like Binance, and in many cases actually outperforming it. So Backpack and Sunrise are contributing to this. We've seen a huge swath of listings from Backpack and Sunrise on-chain this week. 4 new listings in, let me double check here. Yeah, we've got Micron MU, SanDisk SNDK, Paxos Gold, and just today they also added DRAM for dynamic RAM. Look, the spread of what we can trade on Solana is getting wider. The volumes are absolutely going for it. The amount of people trading stocks on Solana is going for it. And I think this is incredibly sustainable because as we've seen, meme coins, they had their moment, delivered a huge amount of volume to the network, but you can't keep trading vaporware between each other forever. We need to mature at some point. We need to grow up. And this is what's happening right before our eyes. as we mentioned earlier, on-chain execution is getting better than ever. More assets are coming on-chain than we've ever seen before. Stock volumes are going absolutely bananas. So this is the future of Solana that we're seeing play out before our eyes. This is the internet capital markets thesis that we've been preaching for a very long time. And regardless of what price is doing, it's very encouraging to see Solana fulfill this Nasdaq on-chain thesis. Thomas, I want to throw it to you here. What's your gut feeling about these 4 new listings that they've brought us?
Yeah, I'm incredibly excited about this. I'm excited about more listings and the way that they're doing this, right? So this is pretty much like this is going to be like the core narrative of Solana. And for them to bring, one-to-one redeemable stocks onto Solana that we can trade, within these dexes that we're comfortable with is amazing. And like the experience that you get for trading these is way better than any of the TradFi different like platforms, right? Like I use a bunch of other ones and I hate using any of them, right? Like I want to do all of this on Solana. So if I can do that and you get the one-to-one redemption, you get dividend support, and they basically did everything the right way, and they did the hard work, which was making sure that it was fully registered, fully certified. Like they did all the legal work ahead of time, and now they're actually starting to release more. I want them to release them a little bit quicker. I don't want to be buying, stocks that have just gone 20x necessarily, but they have to bring, stocks that people want to trade on, right? And that's probably what they're going to want to trade right away. So everything about this narrative I think is great. Like you said, the longevity of these, right? You don't necessarily need to be trading in and out of these, every day. These are something where you can actually, hold investments for a while, where that's where people actually make most of their money, right? When it comes down to it, like day traders and, quick traders, meme traders, some of them make money, but guess what? The majority of them aren't, right? Like buying and holding good assets is what makes people actually money. So I'm excited for that. Everything that Backpack has done, I feel like has like come to this moment, and it's way better than I imagined it was going to be.
TB, if you had to summarize our conversation with Seraphim yesterday in 3 words, what would those 3 words be?
SOS, stocks on Solana, baby. He wouldn't stop talking. He even brought up bonds on Solana. He was so bullish. I mean,
he did. He said eventually people are going to want to trade bonds. And it all sort of fits into this maturity narrative of Solana as a network, as an ecosystem. The whole NASDAQ 2.0 thing, I think, is playing out before our very eyes. You can see here on screen that the Backpack is up 379% in 30 days. Another thing he said is, I saw this playing out and I didn't buy the token, probably should have bought the token. So yeah, if you have massive amounts of conviction that a narrative is going to play out, stocks on Solana being the key narrative at the moment that's playing out, then you probably want to find a proxy for that. Hint: we are going to talk about proxies for our next story.
Yeah.
But before
there are a couple of things I do want to jump on there quickly, though.
Yeah.
Push on through. So obviously, part of bringing global markets on chain and having internet capital markets is the thesis. With this in mind, I want to see more than just US stocks, right? Like Thomas mentioned there. Great that we've got Micron on chain. I wish I could have had it on chain 6 months ago, a year ago. Now, it's gone up 100%, 200% since then. Instead of, these US centric stocks, I want to get Chinese stocks. I want to get Hong Kong stocks. I want to get Korean stocks. I want to get every financial asset on earth brought on chain. So that's the first thing. And the second thing that I think is worth mentioning, there is an asterisk in all this volume. Obviously, it's great that there's so much trading activity for stocks on Solana. We've all seen, over $500 million in volume per day. I think a lot of this volume is actually, inflated a wee bit. So we can see here on screen, this is a Radium pool that has got 30K in liquidity, and it's done $54 million volume in the same day. Now, that's an extraordinary turnover rate. I think as much as it is exciting that there's so much volume on these stocks, there is a lot of incentives and a lot of campaigns running to encourage that volume. So great that there's volume. I'm looking forward to a time where it is just purely organic from traders all over the world, rather than being propped up by a lot of these incentives campaigns from teams like Frontier Traders, that I believe is doing 75K worth of incentives. We had an OKX one for these X stocks as well. So look, we're getting there. It's in the right direction, but I would like to see more organic volume on a lot of these.
Yeah, and as an American, I'd like to see some more foreign stocks as well. And I just had an idea. I don't know what you guys think about this, but I just thought of the killer app, a multi-sig that has tax advantaged accounts. Think about a 401k on chain. Squads, let's make this. How amazing would that be?
We're gonna have to send some emails. I hadn't thought about that. Obviously, tax is a little bit different in the US when it comes to crypto reporting. I think you guys recently went through tax season, right, in the US?
Yeah, it's April. So
Yeah,
just
April?
a couple months
Okay.
ago, we blocked it out of our memory. We made it through it, and I submitted. I pay all my taxes, so no worries there. But yeah, it's always tough.
Right. No one doubted. No one had any doubt that you were not paying your fair share there, Thomas. But just, I want to go back very quickly to Finn's point on Chinese stocks. We actually asked Seraphim when this might be a reality. He was talking about the sort of Solana user base in Korea. We mentioned Hong Kong there as well, and China. And we said, wouldn't it be great if we had these very interesting, very exciting, high growth opportunity Chinese stocks also listed on Solana? Is it going to happen in 18 months? And he point blank said, look, you don't have to wait 18 months. Stocks on Solana is playing out. He said maybe within about 6 months, less than that, we're going to see some of these Chinese stocks on Solana. That would be very exciting.
I think he went a little further than that, and he actually said that he's looking at a cesto basket of the Chinese wife stocks, right?
He did. That was an interesting one. I mean, absolute hot take factory, by the way. If you missed that conversation with Seraphim yesterday, head of taking risk, the man in charge of special situations at Solana Foundation, go and listen to it. If you want to understand where the Solana ecosystem is going as part of this sort of journey of becoming more mature, I think that is a great place to start. And a lot of alpha in that conversation as well. What exactly was he saying with Chinese housewives? You saying that they're such great traders that he wants to sort of copy what they're doing?
Yeah, well, I guess the way that a lot of the trading works is it's the housewives that are actually doing a lot of the trading in that society, right? So whatever they're trading is, I think maybe this was more specific to Korea, but it's like they basically create bubbles, and then they like whatever they're trading, everybody knows, and then it grows from there. So to be able to like focus on like the source of where the bubble is starting is the way to get the action, I guess.
Yeah, but as Finn mentioned earlier in this conversation, the Korean stock market is looking very frothy, very bubbly at the moment. So maybe not the best time to copy Korean housewives. Now, before we move on, I want to very quickly make a point here. I mentioned that I found that Galaxy report earlier, and this ties into what we're talking about here with Solana's journey to becoming a more prosumer-friendly environment. Some of these meme coin casino labels being sort of moved out of the way. Problem number one that Galaxy found with Solana back in Q1, end of Q1, was that fees were flat. They were falling, in fact. Galaxy said network fees were basically just flat quarter on quarter. They were down. And the problem was that other L1 fees were rising. And long story short, that trend has turned. Happy to report that Q2 data shows network fees are recovering, activities broadening outside of just meme coins. So again, friendly reminder to go watch that episode of The Big Picture that we recorded yesterday with Seraphim. Problem number two, and this ties directly into it, they were saying Solana was too dependent on meme coins. So they flagged that 5 out of 10 fee-generating apps were directly meme coin related. No doubt, very familiar name. Pump Fund's share of app fees had jumped by 10% from 22% to 32% quarter on quarter. So almost a third of all fees generated were coming from meme coins. And then they said this is a massive risk for Solana because it's a highly cyclical revenue base. The reversal comes. Look at what Solana is pushing now. It's not just spot meme coins, it's RWAs, it's stocks on Solana. As Seraphim reminded us so often yesterday, we literally just spoke about it. Tokenized commodities, foreign exchange, perps, the whole shebang. And the fee base is naturally diversifying away from just being a meme coin denominated economy. So that's great. That was the single biggest point of dependence that Galaxy had flagged. Happy to report that problem number 3 and 4 and 5 are also somewhat being dealt with. So perps volumes were falling. Prediction markets were not Solana centric. And of course, TVL was falling as well. So all of these issues are somewhat being addressed. Perps volume is climbing again. We have Phoenix, Pacifica, Flash, Bulk, GM Trade, a bunch of names. We also know that Jupiter launched Forecast, a Solana native prediction market, which is great news. I suspect more news is going to come from the Solana native prediction market front. Hint, hint. We do have some alpha. Unfortunately, I can't quite share it yet. If you know what I'm talking about, then drop it in the chat. Tune in next week. I have a feeling we're going to be able to share with you what that news is going to be. And finally, just on the TVL front, all that I'll say here is stocks on Solana. Now, I know I'm ranting, but this is very, very important. So just super quickly, Galaxy's own conclusion back then was that, again, Solana's biggest problem was no longer whether or not people are going to use it. People were already using the chain. The question was whether usage could become more mature, whether the network would become a more durable financial economy. And I think that's the whole crux of the conversation that we're having today, right? Phoenix is live for perps. JTX is coming for the prosumers. The SpaceX IPO happened on was it the 12th or 19th, did more on-chain volume on one day than the New York Stock Exchange itself. Insane numbers. Stocks are pouring on-chain. You've got Micron now trading on Solana. There is zero doubt in my mind, zero doubt that Solana is maturing into a quote-unquote durable financial economy. Now with that, any comments? Any comments on stocks on Solana, or does anybody know what this new Solana native prediction market is going to be?
Yeah, you know what? All right, so I think there's a problem with these reports, right? So like the way that Solana moves and the way that these markets move is it's already out of date, right? Like, everything changes. Like you have 1 month that's bad, you write a report on it, and then immediately the next month things have already changed. Right? Like I myself lost $30 on Jupiter Forecast last night betting on the US. So there's definitely there's definitely some movement there. There is some action on that front. And
Right.
I mean, it's always tough when you read these. Like I was reading this and I was like, man, there's so many things coming. Like we have these two SIMDs that are going to improve the tokenomics. That's going to adjust a lot of that. But it's like, all right, but like right now, those aren't live, right? The sooner they go live, the better. It's like maybe these are problems that we do need to be looking at, right? I know a lot of the meme coin transactions are pretty expensive, right? People are willing to juice up those transactions to make sure that their slippage is as low as possible and to make sure that they actually get those transactions through. Like I don't know how prominent that is right now, but in the heat of meme coin season, you're paying a couple dollars for a swap just to make sure that you got it in because those prices were so volatile. Where I don't think that's really the case anymore, but people still don't really look at the fees when they're swapping meme coins, where if you're swapping, Sol USD, you're looking at, every small, cent, or at least I do. So, I mean, some of those are, I think it's worth bringing those up and I think it's worth thinking about. And, the good thing about Solana is like Solana moves quick on a lot of these, right? So if we see a big issue, we see something that needs to be addressed, we see an area that needs improvement, they kind of act on it pretty quick. So, I'm confident reading that things are changing and at least going in the right direction.
Things are definitely moving in the right direction. Finn, any hot takes on, is Solana maturing? Is there any doubt in your mind that Galaxy's sort of lagging indicator report of the 5 biggest problems are still problems hanging over our heads?
I think to your point, most of those problems have been solved. I think Solana is absolutely maturing. I think it's actually only going to get better. I think Solana at a technical and infrastructure level has never looked as good as it does today. And the fact that it's trading at a 70 or 80% discount to all-time high, given the progress that has been made, is a flaw in the market. So I guess at the same time, we're very lucky to be at this inflection point where we are. I think, as you mentioned, Thomas, once these two SIMDs get pushed through, Sol as an asset becomes a lot more viable. I think Solana has always had this problem where it's got an incredibly vibrant and diverse ecosystem of applications, and the asset hasn't really been there to support that. Now the two are going to be linked. There's going to be a lot more economic flow between these two worlds. And look, I think the future is very bright for Solana on that account.
I agree with you. And you know what I also agree with is your take on ARX being a bit of a proxy for expressing opinions on the Solana privacy world, which, as we know, is growing at the moment. Story number 3 here. The headline, as you can see, Arcium launches ARX token to mixed community reaction. Shock horror. TG happens and the community is divided. Who would have guessed? So Arcium, obviously one of the most watched privacy and sort of confidential compute projects on Solana, finally shipped its token, ARX. People have been talking about this for a few weeks. We mentioned it on last week's weekly news recap. Look, the second you see things like token launch and community allocation, you can expect to see the keyboard warriors going to war on CT, and that's exactly what happened. It opened strong. It tanked about $500 million FTV. Then it sort of cooled off. Finn, talk us through the story. Why is everyone arguing once again? Can't everyone just be friends?
Look, a TGE, or as Arcium's call it in this case, a retroactive token grant. Great little marketing slew there from the guys at Arcium. Well done. Every time you have a TGE, every time you have an airdrop, there's going to be dissenters. There's going to be people who are happy. There's going to be people who are extremely frustrated. That is unavoidable. Looks like out the gates, Arcs has performed quite well. And I think a lot of people are just so excited that Arcium has finally launched a token. Arcium's had one of the most committed communities on Solana that we've seen in a very long time. A lot of people have been very excited about Arcium expanding the privacy footprint on Solana. And I think what is most critical for this is that for a long time, Solana has not really had a privacy coin or a native privacy coin. Yes, we've had privacy apps that have coins. Umbra is a great example. They've been doing an incredible job. But so many of these apps are built on Arcium's tech stack. We saw Zinc, Umbra is another example. Arcium essentially powers, probably a good 50, 60, 70% of all the privacy apps on Solana. They're all building on top of what Arcium has built at an infrastructure layer. So now that we have a token for this, now Solana privacy scene has a proxy bid. If you're bullish on Solana and you're bullish on privacy, all of a sudden you have an instrument to express that opinion. How the token performs in the future, I've got absolutely no idea. The tokenomics look pretty standard to my eyes. There's nothing too egregious there that I would think would cause a problem. But I think the fact that people have been waiting for this for a long time, it's finally been delivered. People were largely happy. I think there was a great comment in this article here that Arcium really rewarded their all-in OGs, can't lie. So people are happy. Massive kudos to the team at Arcium. Allocation checker live ahead of listing. Claim portal ready before listing. Fair and transparent community allocation. Community comes first, and no needless sell pressure. I think generally people are pretty happy with this. Obviously, there's going to be a few dissenters who lingered in the Discord and didn't quite get the allocation they were after. But this is the reality of token launches. You can't please everyone. Life moves on. Generally, I'm very excited to see what Arcium becomes now that it has a token. This feels like a make or break for them. Just all eyes on the privacy now. Arcium is the proxy bet there. Thomas, what's your read here? Do you think that people are unfair to complain about not getting their correct allocation?
People are always going to complain. Farmers are always furious. I myself didn't get an allocation, so you know what? Like, I'm in the same boat as you guys. But overall, like, I am very excited about what Arcium's doing. Right? I personally still like Zcash, but I think that basically the volume that we saw on that was the demand for privacy. Right? So I think that that's like, we could look at that and say like, all right, like, what if there was a coin that's actually has a lot more usability? Right? There's stable coins. There's you could actually, have privacy on Solana, which is incredibly usable, right? So I think that that's like, there's a lot more utility when it comes to that. And yeah, I mean, I still think that like, Zcash has been around for like 10 years, right? So it probably has a better case for like a store of value, but privacy at light speed, with stables or with whatever coin you want, like that's massive, right? Like, I think that that's like needed for crypto. I think that that's actually, probably some of what holds some people back is, you don't want to have your entire financial history available, with one search on SolScan, right?
Yep. And I think one sort of aspect of this discussion, privacy on chain, that doesn't really get reflected too much on CT for obvious reasons, is the enterprise application side of it. I mean, okay, as individuals, we definitely don't want our entire financial history to be one click away from someone. But if you're a company transacting on chain, there's arguably even more risk if your competitors know what you're buying, where you're sourcing it, who you're buying it from, what sort of orders you're placing, when you're making these transactions, then it's probably even more of a risk for an enterprise. I remember back in 2015, something around then, 2016 maybe, back when I was still in university, one of our lecturers was talking about, enterprise blockchain is going to save the world, and supply chains on chain and all this kind of stuff. And the main issue that they pointed out back then is this sort of academic report that they had was, companies aren't going to come on chain if everything is visible in one click. You simply need privacy as a company, because your competitors knowing everything is sort of a recipe for disaster. So that's just one thing I wanted to add. We don't really talk about the enterprise applications of this, but when we interviewed Yannick maybe a year and a half ago, this was one thing that he was really talking about was, look, in the future, we want all money to be on chain. In order for us to realize that vision, that goal, we need privacy on chain. I think it's a massive, massive step in the right direction. What do we think?
Yeah, I agree. I think Umbra, which is like a wallet based on Arcium, I think they even integrated like a privacy payroll system, right? So they're building in that direction. And I mean, that makes sense, right? Like, you don't like payroll shouldn't be public to everyone, so you know like how much everyone's getting paid, you know, who's actually getting paid. You know, it's too easy to follow the money, right? Like there's like safety issues with that. There's competitive issues. Like there's just so many issues that people don't want. I actually do like seeing like if you're able to like look into like revenues on chain for businesses or for companies. Like I like the idea of there being transparency there, but that doesn't work for everybody, right? Like that can't work. Like especially if you're a private company, like a lot of people don't want to give away all of that information because they can't, right? So I think that there is a lot there, and you know, having this, you know, it's not necessarily going to fix everything. Everyone isn't going to like run on chain just because this is here, but I think it gets rid of some of the barriers that are there.
Certainly. Strong launch. Love to see it. Congrats to the entire Arcium team. I tell you what, the next story is a bit, I don't know, it raised some eyebrows. Now, congratulations where congratulations are due, but we get into what this actually means. The headline, as you can see, is Kintara reviving Solana's gaming sector? Light relief and a heavy week, let's say, aside from the price action that we're seeing right now, this moment as we're live, which is sort of positive, moving in the right direction. This is some relief. Solana gaming or on-chain gaming or Web3 gaming or crypto gaming, whatever sort of you've been referring to it as over the last few years. Now, this is a sector that everyone wrote off, including Solana Foundation President Lily, who, as Finn mentioned earlier, said gaming on a blockchain is not coming back. Well, drum roll, because it seems Solana Gaming is catching a bit of a bid. Now, this is a game. It's an on-chain MMO. It's called Kintara. 22,000 players, I think, off the top of my head. Finn, I'm still not convinced. Maybe I'm too much of a boomer. I don't know. And the reason why I'm not convinced yet is because zoom out, think about the last sort of 3 to 4 years. A AAA game like Star Atlas struggled to build a solid, sustainable economic flywheel. Why is Kintara different? Talk me through the story.
I can't tell you why Kintara is different. I guess for a lot of people, there's an element of nostalgia to this. For me, I haven't actually played it, but it looks very kind of RuneScape-esque to me. You know, you have your little character and you run around chopping trees and lighting fires and exploring the world and things like that. Look, the numbers are encouraging, right? People have talked about how crypto gaming has never come back for a long time. There's this idea that crypto and blockchain is only useful for financial applications, so that nothing outside of that has stuck. Nothing outside of, you know, financializing any kind of market or financial service has continued to exist in this on-chain economy. Now, it's still early days, but Kintara actually seems to be maintaining itself pretty well. You know, we've got over 20,000 monthly players, and obviously it's an easy way to go and say, look, that if is that players, is that wallets, you know, has this been bumped up, you know, artificially? Kintara has actually announced that they have banned 4,000 accounts that they believe to have been bots. So they are actually making an effort to curtail any kind of inorganic activity, which is encouraging. The in-game marketplace has got over 9,000 player-to-player transactions per day on average. And the token that's associated with the game hasn't gone down 90%, which is what we've seen in most gaming tokens in the past. I remember, if we, you know, cast our minds back to 2021, there was a glorious run of play-to-earn gaming, which was kickstarted by things like Axie Infinity and Steppen, and then trickled down to more DG things, which were basically just DeFi protocols wrapped in a a pixelated front end. I had a lot of fun playing those DeFi games. Remember anyone play DeFi Kingdoms back in the day?
I didn't. No, I didn't.
I was on Harmony Chain. It was a different time.
But look, wait, how many got hacked as well? No, an old colleague of mine used to run the video department there. I think there was a hack involved in that. Axie Infinity, another name you mentioned. Wasn't there a $600 million hack involved in that as well? Was it a bridge hack?
Yeah, it was a bridge hack. It was the
sorry to be the bringer of bad news and bad memories back, but yeah, I remember that 2021 play to earn era largely marred by reporting on the number of hacks and exploits and people losing their money, and it was often very young people on chain losing their money. Anyway, back to you, Finn.
Yeah,
but like you had a great time.
It wasn't necessarily all hacks. It was also just hyperinflationary tokenomics. You know, you got rewarded with a token for playing the game that you then had to feed back into that same gameplay loop. It all became very hyperinflationary. If you look at any chart from that time, Axie Infinity is a great example. Went from $1 to $200 and then went all the way back down to, you know, $10 just because it was hyperinflationary, couldn't sustain itself. Now, that's what has happened to one of the games mentioned in this article here, because obviously Kintara is kind of the front runner of this emerging meta. And obviously there's teams coming in to piggyback on that. The second one was called Farmtown, that launched probably 3 or 4 days ago. Had quite a similar premise, of you get your tokens, you create a farm that gives you more tokens, and then you reinvest in your farm. This is unsustainable. This doesn't work. This is just a DeFi yield game wrapped in a different picture to try and entice people to come in. And obviously, this token farm has dropped probably 80-90% since this article was written. So if you're getting into crypto gaming, just take a careful look at how the mechanics and the economies of these games actually work. And I think that's why, to your point, Jack, a lot of people have said that crypto gaming is not coming back because they just get burnt. But one of the things that I did kind of dig up in this while looking into this whole crypto gaming sector is that the scale of these games has increased enormously. So Thomas, you probably remember this, but back in the day, let's go 2023, everybody on Solana was playing the Heist. The Heist was, an absolutely massive NFT game. There wasn't a single person involved in Solana at the time who wasn't playing this. Now, I looked back at the records, and the biggest day for daily trading volume in the Heist of its native token, Nana, was about 600K. If we fast forward to today, a game like Kintara that's been running for probably a month now, that is isolated to a very small pocket of users. Not everybody I know on Solana has played this game. It's doing $2 million in volume every single day. So the games that were, absolutely historic corner pieces of Solana culture in yesteryear are only a fraction of the size of the games that are happening on chain now that, not everybody is actually engaging with. So for me, it tells a story that the chain is evolving, it's maturing, it's getting so much larger in terms of scale that, the relics of the past are being dwarfed by the new games coming in. So for me, that's very exciting. And yeah, the final thing here is that Lily said gaming was never coming back. Kintara is doing their best to prove her wrong. So well done, Kintara. We love to see it. We love to see people go out and prove the doubters wrong. But that's my feeling on crypto gaming. It's been lengthy. I apologize. Thomas, did you played the Heist back in the day?
I never played the Heist. I missed it, and everybody else seemed to just make a ton of money on it. And then I looked into it after the fact.
Exposed as a fraud.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I'm not into gaming, right? Like, so this is never going to be my thing. But there are a ton of gamers out there that are very into this. And look, like, if people are having fun and they're doing it on chain, like, I want there to be more of this, right? I want this to prove out to not be another like Ponzi, with insane tokenomics that everyone loses money on. Like, if they can find a sustainable way to do it, people will play. Like, that is a, $2 million a day. That's a good amount of volume, right? It's exciting on there. So I don't know. I mean, if people are going to do it, like, do it on Solana, find a way to make it sustainable and make it work. Like, I think that could be awesome. I think Farmtown was supposed to be like Farmville on Solana, but you can't beat those bad tokenomics. I feel like Axie Infinity was kind of a rage. Like, there was like, it was like a rush. There was like people in the Philippines playing this game. Like, it was like a whole economy built around it. So
Yep.
there is like a desire for that type of game. I don't know how you necessarily crack into it again, and I probably won't be the one playing it. But you know what? If people are going to do it, build it, right?
This is around the time that Meta announced that they were going to spend billions and billions and billions and billions building the metaverse, right? Because they saw these sort of what they thought was massive product market fit. They assumed that it would be global, it would be a worldwide phenomenon, and it sort of fizzled out, I think, as people ended up losing a bunch of money. Terrible tokenomics, as you mentioned. So do enjoy these things cautiously. Don't get burned. But I think the biggest loser in this was Meta, because how much money did they waste on building?
Oh, it's hundreds of billions, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was an insane amount of money.
Yeah.
The metaverse is not coming back.
The metaverse is not coming back. I tell you what, Web3 gaming might come back more than the metaverse comes back. That's my vanilla take for the day. Okay, now back into Finn's spicy, juicy, delicious newsletter. You've got 2 stories on screen here. We're going to talk about number 5, Solstice and Tensor. This is a $1 billion facility to power Europe's AI future. Now, the reason why I find this interesting is because yesterday we were talking with Seraphim, who has lived in the UK in the past, lived in various parts of Europe. He says Europe is dead because we don't even have AC. I fundamentally disagree. It's very, very hot here. I'm not having a great time, but Europe is not dead. And maybe part of the reason why Europe is not dead is because finally $1 billion is being allocated to funding an AI infrastructure program across the European Union. Crucially, though, It's being built with an on-chain layer that's on Solana. So is Europe back? I don't know. One of the reasons why I think maybe difficult to answer that at the moment is how frequently the word trillion gets thrown around in the US across the pond. We have trillionaires now. We have trillion-dollar companies. We have trillion-dollar TradFi firms coming to Solana, and it's all happening in the US. So I don't know. It's a step in the right direction. Finn, break it down for us. I feel like it's not a massive, massive story.
Look, if you want to see AI build-outs happen in Europe, it is a massive story for you. And we like that there's Solana DeFi players involved in these kinds of things. So obviously, Solstice is teaming up with TensorX to power this. Solstice, as we know, a stablecoin provider on Solana. They've been doing quite well after their token launch. I believe TVL is up around 300 million, 400 million. What I find most fascinating about this is that a lot of this build-out is being powered by AI USX, which is Solstice's upcoming yield-bearing asset, yield-bearing stablecoin. And if I understand correctly, I was chatting with Pablo earlier, who wrote this article. He was saying that the premise is that Solstice is in deep ties with a lot of these European AI companies, and these European AI companies have got a whole lot of cash on hand, but they stand the risk of being priced out of the rising costs of AI buildouts. Now, they need to keep that cash on hand. You know, they can't just invest that somewhere to try and hope for it to go up, because that's just not a smart way to plan to do your build out. So what's being proposed is that these European AI companies can get in contact with Solstice, who can then lend out these assets, these stable coins, to generate yield for these companies and contribute to this European build out. So I don't know where this goes, but at the same time, I'm happy to see AI build outs happening in Europe. You know, I want to fight as a Euro poor myself. Want to fight against this idea that Europe is dead. There's some great museums, but you know, let's catch up in the corporate stakes as well. Thomas, any thoughts?
Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts. I say pump it. I love hearing this, right? Like I'm in America, but like I want to see Europe crush it, you know, like get over the regulating and just start building, right? You know, I'm very excited about this. I mean, we've seen, you know, AI has been a massive like sector of growth in the US, right? And I feel like up until now, you've seen a lot of like the European regulators, you know, try to like ban it and talk down about it. So I think to take a different stance and like, all right, let's start building out. Let's use this stuff. I think that that's going to like help. I think that's going to be a big like sector for growth. And I mean, for Solstice to kind of be in the middle of this as well, like this is awesome, right? Like Solstice, like decentralized stable coins, like we've been talking about how we want more of that. So I like everything about this story. And what are your thoughts, Jack? It looked like you wanted to butt in there. We got to hear.
I'm just wondering if a resident American thinks Solstice and AI investments. By the way, worth mentioning, it's up to $1 billion. It's not necessarily that it's $1 billion. Just notice that, worth mentioning. But the question is Solstice and Solana DeFi going to save Europe through investing in, you know, AI infrastructure? I'm not so sure. You mentioned how bogged down we are in some of the regulatory issues, and I think as AI creates a positive feedback loop where the rate of innovation necessarily increases as the technology becomes more applicable and more powerful, then Europe is really sort of shooting itself in the foot in many, many ways. Is Europe dead? Absolutely not. Least of all, we have great cafes and great museums, as Finn mentioned. So I'm not particularly worried, but I'm also not holding my breath that this is going to solve the major issues that we're facing. Tell you what, though, one thing that I'm very, very excited about is story number 6 here. MoneyGram launches Solana Validator as global payments giant. They really are a global payments giant. Steps into network infrastructure. I didn't see this coming. This took me by surprise. I think yesterday or the day before, I scooted past a store with a MoneyGram logo, like a big MoneyGram placard on it. So, I mean, whether you're talking to your parents or your grandparents, everyone's heard of MoneyGram. It's an absolute giant. We love to see it. What I didn't see coming is that they're now buying and staking Sol, right? Actually contributing to the network. We also have Western Union. I think this happened maybe 4 or 5 months ago, maybe a bit less, coming on chain on Solana. So some of the biggest remittance companies in the world are now both on Solana. They're actively and I guess financially motivated to secure the network, to participate in the network. So I didn't see this coming. It seems net positive. Finn, the question that I have, though, is does this move the needle for Sol and for Solana?
It depends on what respects you mean. I think it does in a sense of economic activity. I think MoneyGram's got over 60 million clients worldwide. If you know people are moving money from all corners of the world through platforms like MoneyGram. I don't know if it moves the needle in the sense that it's going to make Sol price go up, but it definitely means we're going to get more stablecoin volume, and stablecoins are the lifeblood of any on-chain economy. So I think it's a positive in that sense. What stands out to me more though is that there's not really any other, Titanic-sized remittance companies left in the world who aren't coming to Solana. Like already we've got Western Union, we've got MoneyGram, we've got WorldPay. Who's left there? Who are we still missing? Solana is proving itself out as the payments chain on top of all the other, everything exchange chain, AI chain. Like we're starting to become the everything chain for everything, which is fantastic. And the fact that MoneyGram wants to run a validator and secure the network and contribute in that way, I think is a net positive as well. I think that's fantastic. I had a look at the chain earlier today, and I didn't actually see the validator. I couldn't see how much stake they'd accumulated there. So maybe they're still, in the tying up the final loose ends on that. But ultimately, I think this is positive. They've also been shoulder tapped to join the Solana Developer Platform program. So, if you don't recall, this was an initiative launched by the Solana Foundation a few months ago, where basically the idea is to help these massive, gargantuan companies who don't have a whole lot of blockchain experience to streamline their the development process so that they can start building meaningful apps on chain as quickly as possible. Now, MasterCard, WorldPay, and Western Union have all been involved in this as well. So what we're getting is the world's largest remittance companies building on-chain applications, running validators, and being more engrossed and engaged and ingrained in the Solana economy. So fantastic news all around. I think it's very, very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, building a validator, it's kind of like validating Solana's competitive advantage, right? It's like cheap global money at the speed of light. And I think remittance is just expensive, right? Like cross-border money, there aren't good ways to do it and with traditional rails, right? So this is just like proving out Solana can do this. It can do it like more cheaply. It can do it cheaper. And I mean, I think it's awesome, right? You're kind of seeing like the TradFi rails being chipped away, and for Solana to kind of be at the core of it, I think is huge. There was a big uproar when Western Union chose Solana for its stablecoin. Remember that? So it's like everyone's kind of picking Solana for this. So it is exciting, and yeah, I'm all for it. Keep going.
Yeah,
XRP holders in disbelief.
Yeah, they are. Not to fuel.
Someone should check on those guys. I hope they're doing okay.
They're probably not, but not to fuel any unnecessary levels of tribalism here. But I agree. There's a reason why these massive 100-plus-year-old TradFi giants are choosing Solana, and I think this is a great quote that Pablo's picked here. We're helping make blockchain infrastructure a core part of global money movement. And which blockchain infrastructure are they talking about? They're talking about Solana. So. Yeah, definitely signals a broader industry shift. TradFi is deciding that things are just too expensive. If you're sending money from somewhere in the US to somewhere in the Philippines, for example, you're doing remittances that way. You don't really want to be paying a fee to up to 12 intermediaries, right? Disintermediation is so important in what I think a lot of these chains are trying to achieve. And it seems that the biggest names are picking Solana. So I'm happy to report that we are seeing a broader industry shift here. Now, what this means for Solana is just more validation, I think, and the fact that they want to come and set up a validator rather than just using the chain. They're actually invested in securing the chain. To me, is net positive. Are we excited? Are we excited for MoneyGram more than we were excited for Western Union? That's an interesting angle. When Western Union came on chain, I think it was at a conference in London. I believe Yano was on stage with the CEO of Western Union, and he was basically saying, look, in the long run, we might actually just end up using our own system, if you will. But for the time being, we're going to use Solana. So I sort of had my doubts there. Are we more excited about MoneyGram than we were about Western Union?
I think I was more excited about Western Union just because it happened first.
Right.
Thomas, I don't know if you feel differently.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited about both of them. Yeah, I think Western Union kind of came out first, and Western Union's launching a stable coin too, right? So a little bit more there. It's like I don't know what's more of like who's more bullish between the two of them. One of them's launching a validator, one of them's launching a stable coin. It's both like I mean they're both pretty big. They're both.
There is a bit more to that because MoneyGram does have a stable coin, but it's on Stellar at the moment. And to me, it makes sense that if they're running a Solana validator, they obviously have interest in the Solana network. They're going to bring that stablecoin over to Solana as well. Now that's not confirmed, but I would be very, very surprised if that wasn't in motion as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Stellar,
and
as our listeners probably know, has been working specifically on remittances for a long time now. So they have a massive sort of head start in that arena. It would be doubly impressive if Solana ends up sort of politely vampire attacking a lot of that activity over from Stellar. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, and I'm gonna give a quick shout out to Stellar because whenever it first came out, it was the first shitcoin that I ever bought, and I made a ton of money on it. So thank you to Stellar. I don't know what they're up to these days.
Can we call it, in good conscience, a shitcoin? Is it really?
I like Stellar. I like Stellar.
I think they're good guys, right? Stellar,
There's
are good guys.
there's some good apps being built over on Stellar.
Yeah.
At the time,
think so.
anything other than Bitcoin was considered a shitcoin.
There we
So
go.
to be fair, that was just the general, like, altcoins were just called that. So
Yeah. No, you're right. And if it onboarded TB, then thank you very much to Stellar and the Stellar Development Foundation, I think headed by Danelle Dixon. Good people, good team. Now, Finn, towards the end of our conversation, what we love to do every Friday is go through a rapid fire round of honorable mentions. These are stories that move the needle, that are very important both to the Solana ecosystem and the crypto industry, but don't quite make the cut. Do you want to take it away and run through these honorable mentions?
Absolutely. Honorable mentions this week. Europe leading once again. We have got a $1.8 trillion assets under administration wealth tech firm, Allfunds, bringing tokenized funds on-chain to Solana. KG Financial, South Korea's largest payments processor, to bring stablecoin payments to its 220,000 merchants. Titan launches DCA swaps. GardenDAO seeks Futario raise to acquire the ball used in this year's historic Game 4 of the NBA Finals. That's very, very cool. I like that one. Solana ETF Sols KZ is now live on the Kazakhstan Stock Exchange. Exponent launches risk tranching, bringing principal protection to Solana DeFi. Solana's RWA market crosses $3 billion in total value. Surfcash launches crypto native loans on Solana using wallet history to set credit limits. Solana-based World Series of Poker buy-ins crosses $10 million. And FOMO raises $75 million in a Series B round. So a fantastically diverse list that we've got.
It is.
Yeah,
so
Jack,
much happening.
What do you like? What stands out?
What do I like? What do I like? Okay, I tell you what I like and what I love. Let's start with what I like. I like the World Series of Poker thing because I'm a poker. I like poker. But I don't love it. What I love is Solana's RWA market crossing $3 billion in total value. We did do some reporting on this earlier in the week as well. I want to say 290,000 wallets now, over 2,100, maybe 2,150 asset types. So real world assets equals a mature ecosystem, equals diversity of assets, diversity of holders, maturity of assets, maturity of holders. So that's why I love it. That one's going to be my favorite. TB, do you have... I have a feeling you're going to say World Series of Poker, but is there...
Yeah. I'm going with two as well. I can't narrow it down to one. So I'm going with two. I'm going with poker buy-ins. Like, I knew this was going to be bullish, over $10 million. I bet by the end of the summer, end of the World Series of Poker, it's going to be more. Double it. Why not? I knew that was going to be a good crossover. That's been exciting. I've actually been watching some of the tournaments on the Solana stream. So it's been good. I think that there is just a ton of crossover between the two communities. So that's exciting. And then I'm going to go with Titan as well. So I love Titan. I love that they're launching DCA swaps. I just hope that it's not in USD1, like their limit orders. Like, I don't know. I don't like USD1 anymore.
Finn.
Fair play. Look, for me, it's going to be GardenDAO doing a Futario race to try and get the ball from the NBA Finals. I think this is really fun, right? Because we talk so much about how anything that is not a financial game, anything that is not financial rails in blockchain is dead. And while this is, to a degree, this is capital formation to acquire memorabilia and historic assets. I think this is fun, right? This is a creative use of what's happening on Solana to try and achieve something. GardenDAO wants to start collecting all the biggest memorabilia and grails, I guess, of New York basketball history. This is a fun new way of collecting on chain. So I want to see that succeed.
Yep. Very fair. Also worth mentioning at this point, Exponent launching risk tranching, very mature, very TradFi-esque. We like that because people that are coming in as sort of mature investors, people from the TradFi world, want some guarantees that if shit hits the fan, that they can sort of get their money out first. So risk tranching is very, very important. Another thing I want to mention here is Sols KZ, now live on the Kazakhstan Stock Exchange. We did do a documentary style investigation into the Kazakh crypto scene maybe a year and a half ago. So it's great to see that not just the Solana ecosystem, but crypto in general is really taking a foothold in Kazakhstan. A great country. You can go find that video on SolanaFloor's YouTube account. With that said, you can also find a better way to stake Sol with Sanctum's mobile app. It is live on the Seeker. If you are a Seeker user, you can go check that out. Easy way to get 8% APY on your Sol. Now, this conversation was spicy. This was a very spicy conversation. I feel like it was the spiciest and most gloves off conversation we've ever had on the big picture. So if you want to find out why Seraphim thinks Ethereum is dead, his sort of mandate, if you will, to get $10 billion of additional TVL into Solana land, why he thinks RWAs on chain are a great thing, and what the future of stocks on chain, SOS is going to be, then go listen to that conversation. It was great. Finn, stat of the week. What do we have here? I feel like this is all just moving in the same direction. Solana is maturing. Solana is the best place to trade everything. What's going on?
Yeah, well, it was a tough call picking the stat of the week this week. Obviously, the $500 million in daily tokenized stock trading volume was in the shortlist. But this year, this week, it's going to be Solana Summer on the horizon. Over 20,000 dormant wallets returned to Solana dexes last week, trading for the first time in more than a year. I had this belief that all the people who got wrecked in the meme coin super cycle of early 2025 were so disgusted by crypto and so despondent with what they experienced that they hang up their wallets and they were never going to come back. This week, over 20,000 wallets have reawakened. People do want to be trading on chain. I think it's very encouraging. Let's get that liquidity flowing. Let's get this trading activity and usage back up to bull market levels.
Conspiracy.
Yeah, love to see it. Great stat.
Conspiracy. 20,000 wallets. The gaming story had 22,000 wallets. Is it the same wallets? Are they just coming back
Could
to
be.
mercenary capital, the Web3 gaming scene? Are they going to extract and leave again? Surely not.
Do you think they were just sidelined? Do you think they're just sidelined, like waiting to get back in? I feel like meme coins, it's kind of like a lottery ticket a little bit, where it's like you can make like, I don't know, 100x on a meme coin quicker than anywhere else, right? Like,
and you could lose 100%. You could lose 100%.
Yeah, you could also lose 100%. But I feel like that's like, I don't know. I feel like the trenches kind of heated up a little bit, and it was like I got the urge myself. It's like, wow, should I be buying these meme coins again? Yeah. So it's like maybe one of those wallets was my wallet,
Maybe. All right. State of Solana in a tweet. This is good, net positive reporting from Gum. Just very, very quickly, sorry, I want to shout out Adam here. He does have a lot of good charts, good stats, good data. So yeah, state of Solana tweets. Finn, what do we have?
Yes, our good friend Gumshoe says, if you told me 2 years ago that meme coin volume would be lower than tokenized assets on Solana, I would be laughing. This is the new reality. Solana is an ecosystem that is home to a vast number of communities and investment profiles. Seeing this happen in real time is amazing. Now, Gumshoe obviously is referring to the fact that tokenized equity, tokenized stock volumes on Solana have eclipsed meme coin volume share. So in the past, Solana was a meme coin casino, and that's all it was good for. That's what the detractors would say. Today, we've matured. We've come an incredibly long way. We are one step closer to becoming the everything exchange. Tokenized stock volume, RWAs, is soaring. This is where the future of the chain is going to be, and I couldn't be happy about the direction we're all taking.
TB, final thoughts on Gumshoe's post here?
I think it's fantastic. I think that this is what Solana should be doing, right? I think that's going to probably flip. It's going to go back and forth. Memes come back. There's liquidity there. Stocks are hot. There's going to be liquidity there. I can't wait to see, meme stocks pop off on Solana too. Like, I just think that all of that is bullish. I'm excited.
Yes, Seraphim was talking about penny stocks, right? As a potential sort of penny stock pink sheet revival. The Wolf of Wall Street lovers among you will be excited for that. Meme stonks on Solana. That could be the next big trend. We don't know yet. He also mentioned bonds on Solana. So really the two ends of the maturity spectrum there as far as stocks and RWAs on Solana goes. But there you go. That is your week on Solana. We saw Micron going live on chain through Solana. We had some good earnings, good volume. SpaceX also went live on Solana. We saw, I want to say around the 20th of the month, more volume on chain on Solana than the New York Stock Exchange itself, because it was the weekend. But still, this is good news for Solana. In other news, Bitcoin touched a 20-month low. That was pretty sad times yesterday when Bitcoin touched $58,000 a pop. It is now recovering as we speak. We also had $1.2 billion liquidated. Wasn't great. Having said that, the bottom might be in. We don't know. We will have to wait and see. Ansem thinks the bottom is already in. Be cautious. Arcium shipped ARX to a mixed sort of sentiment crowd, as you'd expect. Solana Gaming clawing back from the dead, or is it? I don't know. I'm still not convinced. And finally, $1 billion AI facility picking Solana. Oh, also MoneyGram, the MoneyGram Solana story, a Solana validator being launched by MoneyGram. Also didn't see that coming. So macro world was a little bit rough this week. Can't sugarcoat that, but I think the one sort of line that's impossible to miss is price is doing its own thing. The fundamentals are stronger than they ever have been, as we often say on the show. So the charts and the chain telling two very different stories. I think in the long run, the chain, the ecosystem, the builders, the developers will often prevail, as they always have done through the ups and the downs of this industry. With that, if you want access to Finn's spicy newsletter, then go to SolanaFloor.com and subscribe to it. You'll get a little pop-up there. Finn, Thomas, any final words? Is the bottom in? Yes or no?
My final words are, I still can't believe that Seraphim didn't leak any information about the world.
World.xyz.
What was the alpha? He was
it?
right there. He was about to say something.
What is world.xyz? Does anyone know?
What in the world is world XYZ?
What in the world is world.xyz? I don't know. I have a feeling we're going to find out in next week's weekly recap live stream, and that's going to be Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Tune in. Hopefully, we can leak it by then. And with that said, gents, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you next week.
All right. Thanks,
Cheers,
guys.
fellas.